Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. It is a pleasure to see everybody today, and we're going to be talking about a very prominent subject in in the startup space that, yes, also applies to the blockchain space as well. But in the startup space, as investors, we're going to be talking today a little bit about why do startups fail? What are some of those common mistakes that startups may and founders may make, and also just what happens from time to time, whether it's market conditions, whether it's something else. We're going to be talking about it from an investor and from a founder perspective as well. And I'm joined by some outstanding co-hosts from around the world of the VCTV family, and excited to have each and every one of them here today. Also, a big thank you to the Token team, to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode possible. Make sure to check us out on thetoken.com to hear from today's speakers, and again, all speakers of the VCTV family. With that, Tushar, welcome. I'll have you kick us off, a little intro, a little background with everybody.
Sure. Myself, Tushar Kansal from Consultancy Ventures. We are closely networked with more than 400 investors, including VC funds, including family offices and angel investors. My background is in corporates like Deloitte and Touche, where I handle the private equity practice in India's largest venture capital fund called Brand Capital, by the number of deals, largest by the number of deals. And I was raised almost $2.5 billion for the Russian telecom company Sistema, and also was CFO with the logistics company owned by Guggenheim Partners. And in my current company, we have closed almost 12 deals in 2 years. And happy to be discussing this crucial subject today in the presence of all of you. Thank you, Kyle, as well.
Thank you as well, Tushar. Kavesh, welcome back to the show as well. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Thanks, Kyle. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Keshav Adya. I go by Keshav Adya. Personally, I have about 20 odd years experience in the industry. The first 10 years banks such as Morgan Stanley, HSBC, Lloyds Banking Group, primarily working on fintech, post-merger integration, and pretty much the whole suite of integrating companies post their acquisitions. The next 5 years was spent more as a founder, where I founded about 20 odd ventures, including big data and artificial intelligence firms before they were buzzwords. And also did my MBA from London Business School during those times. So I have the first-hand experience of working as a startup founder and experiencing it firsthand. I'm going through the trauma and of course the joys of being a founder. Over the last 5 years, I've been a founder again with Adan Corporate. We are a team of 50 odd former C-suite executives who have come together, and we work with small, mid-sized businesses and private equity and venture capital funds on pretty much the whole spectrum of corporate finance, equity, debt, corporate restructuring, you name it. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Kyle.
Absolutely. Thank you as well. Vandana, to you, a little intro and a little background for everybody.
So, first of all, hi everybody from all parts of the world. Here in India, it is 8:40 p.m. right now, and I'm so glad to be, with all the panelists from other parts of the world as well. First of all, I would like to thank the entire team of Latokan VCTV, Maria, Hasmik, Carol, Abhibek, Kyle, for organizing this show and connecting us from all parts of the world, because it's very difficult to organize these shows and get so many speakers at the same time to talk about, things like why startups fail and give insights. I would like to introduce myself. I was in Singapore and Jakarta for 15 years. I had my own family office in Singapore and Jakarta. I worked as an investment banker and advisor to family offices and angel investors in Jakarta, Indonesia, helping startups from a diverse background, from fintech and B2B tech all the way to consumer startups. I was raising funds for them and providing them with a range of services, just as Convanto does today. After 15 years of staying in Singapore and Jakarta, I came back to India. I did investments for a bit, then returned to advisory. That is when Convanto was founded. Today, Convanto is one of the most well known boutique investment banks in India, led by a female founder. I'm also a venture advisor with Loyal VC, the INSEAD led Canadian VC fund, having a core portfolio of over 160 investments in more than 35 countries. I'm also a partner with GST Venture Studios, a Silicon Valley based venture builder. Over the years, I've arranged funding for startups and growth stage companies in diverse sectors like edutech, fintech, consumer B2C, B2B, agri-tech, health tech, food tech, disruptive, and deep tech. And this month, I've been nominated as one of the top 10 women leaders in Wealth Management 2021. My expert opinion is often sought by leading business news channels and publications like VCTV, Business World, and I've participated in 155 talks all over the world. These talks can be viewed on YouTube and VCTV streaming sites. Also, I'm connected with 300 investors globally, and we pick up global deals. We are sector agnostic, and typically we do $1 million to $25 million. And once again, thank you for having me here.
Thank you as well. It's a pleasure. And last but not least, Misty, welcome to the show. First time, a little intro, a little background for everybody.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Kyle. My name is Misti Cain. I'm in Southern California. My background is as a founder as well as a startup mentor. So I have the pleasure of being an all-star mentor for Techstars Anywhere and the Techstars family. So I've helped over 40 startups going through the program raise funds as well as improve on their strategy. My background is as a business strategist, working with B2B SaaS, as well as working on the future of remote work and remote life, which has been extremely exciting to see what people are dreaming up for the next few years. I also have the pleasure of being an EIR at one of the SoCal universities here where I live, and a mentor for WeWork Labs, so the mentorship platform of WeWork. And fun fact, I am the business strategy host for a business reality show with MailChimp, the CRM company out of Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. Very exciting to dive a little deeper on that. Fabio, welcome to the show as well. A little intro, a little background for everybody. Oh, we might have lost Fabio there on that, but let's go ahead and start with today's topic. Why do startups fail? You know, the time-old tale is that 90% of startups fail. And I think that's adjusted a little bit to be more around like 60 to 70% and maybe even less. Nonetheless, it is a difficult process, right? Starting something for nothing and seeing it in terms of succeed. And I believe for today's discussion, success we'll define as some kind of exit or lifestyle business, which means something that people are doing for a long period of time as a career and not just for a couple of years. So with those contexts in place, would love to hear your thoughts individually and kind of why do startups fail? There's many reasons, but let's start with a few. Tushar, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Kyle. I have seen a number of startups not do well, and even on the startups where I've raised funding, they all live like day one, and the reason is the markets, they keep on changing. Now, who knew that the Lehman crisis would come? Who knew that COVID, something like COVID, is possible? And these are the macro things which keep on happening. The governments, they change rules, they change laws, and also new technologies. We are all here talking about technology because it is very scalable. But at the same time, technology changes every 3 to 6 months, and new leaders emerge and new business models emerge. But I remember seeing there was a study done as to why that the top reasons why startups fail. And it is not surprising that more than 40% startups, they fail because there is no market need for their product. And so they end up designing the wrong product, which can't fetch them money from the customers. And many startups, they run out of cash. They don't take care of their cash burn. And in good times, there's a company here, Snapdeal. It recruited more than 10,000 people because it was number 3 in the e-commerce market. But it faced a very rough situation, and then it had to retrench almost 8,000 out of those 10,000. So they run out of cash, and the team is not right. Almost 23% people, they said that it's not the right team. So the balance in the team is missing. And many startups, they don't take good advisors and mentors, don't have the right investment bank with their side to raise funds. And that is that's all. They should always be conscious about having the right advisors and having the right team. So a mix of all these factors, Kyle.
That's a good starting palette right there. I think you've got the majority of them, and we're going to dive a little deeper. But Misti, anything else to add? Kavesh, I saw you on mute first, so I'll come to you, and then Misti and Vandana. But Kavesh, anything to add on that? I mean, again, that was a pretty extensive list, but also some areas to kind of maybe shine a little bit more light on.
Well, as a startup founder who's failed a few times, I can just say startups are designed to fail, but entrepreneurs are not. So in all the chaos that exists within startups, there is a secret pattern. There is a structure. Okay, once you experience failure, and once you see why you failed, you'll come to that realization that there is a pattern. And normalcy or chaos, it's just an illusion. It's just like, what is normal for the spider is chaos for the fly. Excuse me. So I like to categorize startup failures into 2 broad buckets. The first, I'd like to call them as the productive failures. So these failures are a part and parcel of learning, and pretty much all humans go through it. And more often than not, they serve as these underlying catalysts for future success. Okay, as long as there is a learning in that failure. Okay. However, there are a number of unnecessary failures. These failures could have been avoided either through better market research, better planning, bringing on board the right mentors and advisors, like Tushar said, and for that matter, preparing some sort of a bridge between where you are and where you want to be with regards to your finances, your team, pretty much everything else, right? So as a founder, I think if you look at boosting your productive failure and using this failure as a catalyst to grow, you'd be in a much better place, because like I said, startups are designed to fail. And as a founder, you have to prevent that from happening every hour of the day.
No, you're absolutely right. It never stops. As one would say, you never sleep. Where there's, as I heard a quote yesterday, as a founder and as a manager, you're always trying to put out fires. All right, always trying to hedge against the failure. And when everything seems to be going right, it just means something is going wrong that you don't know about yet, as well. And all jokes aside, it is sort of true, mostly true as a founder as well. Misti, anything to add on to this point of why startups fail? But real quick before you do, Kavesh, I do want to point out a note of startups fail. They're built and designed to fail their businesses, but entrepreneurs are not. I thought that was a really good quote, and wanted to make sure that got echoed. So Misti, to you, anything to add on to this and why startups may fail?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kyle. So one of the things that I think is incredibly important is to make things memorable for others. And the things that stick out to me as a strategist and also a founder, my job is literally to help other startups and businesses create step-by-step strategies to get them to the promised land of either IPOing or SPACing or unicorn level growth and or a lifestyle business. And I've boiled it down based on my heuristic work with startups, as well as several different studies that I've had the pleasure of working with some people who are extremely smart and really adept at data analytics, into 4 main points. And I call these points the 3PS points. So the first point is pride. And that deals with the idea of being married. And to my husband, who's like, wait, hold on, marriage is going to kill your startup. What I mean by that is being married to your idea. So if you have an idea and for whatever reason it's not working out, and you're not innovating, or you're not changing, or you're not restructuring your idea based on what your customers are saying or what the market is telling you, then you're ultimately going to either plateau, or at worst, you're going to fail. The second P is profit. So a lot of times, especially newbie startups, when they come to me or they have questions, they're like, I can do this. I can be $1 million a month startup. All I have to do is get, 1,000 people to pay me $100 a month, and then boom, I'm there. And they don't take into account things like the cost it's going to take to acquire a customer, either the actual physical monetary cost and or the cost to your team. So if you have lower paying customers, sometimes it requires more support because they need more hand-holding, and you don't have enough human capital to be able to support that. The third P is your people. When you first start out, a lot of times you're starting with what you've got, the friends, the family. I actually worked with a business who his mom was the bookkeeper, and that worked well for their first $500,000 in revenue. But to get them from $500,000 to $5 million, he had to fire his mom. So sometimes it's going to take some really difficult decisions, cutting difficult ties, and you have to do this consistently. As the adage says, what got you here is not going to get you there. So first we have pride, we have profit issues, so not considering the profit that you're making on what it is that you're spending, your people, not vetting your team consistently, and then the last and final point is stagnation. So stagnation deals with not rebuilding or even acquiring based on trends or data. You cannot build and do everything. Sometimes you're going to have to take resources from either another team or another company that would be a good synergistic fit with your own. That could be in terms of partnerships, and that could be in terms of actually acquiring or merging with another company. And if you're not considering that and just relying on your own internal resources, then you're also at risk of failing as well.
Wow. And was this a mentality or just a framework you put together over the years, and having worked with so many of these startups, or just something you developed as a founder and or investor yourself?
Yeah, so a lot of what I do is I create frameworks. So when startups are looking to make decisions, they don't have a lot of time to pore over data and how to do it. Otherwise, they get trapped in this paralysis analysis. So I come up with different frameworks, and I'm sure you're familiar with some. And sometimes I try and make sure that they're memorable, like an acronym, like people are familiar with RACI. But other times I just try and boil them down into 3 or 4 really key points that startups can use for whatever phase they're in. Hey, I need to product market fit my idea. How do I do that? Here's a spa treatment framework, and I'll explain that to them. So this is one of those frameworks that help founders avoid failure, that I put together in order to allow them to make decisions quickly. Hey, are we not vetting our people? Are we not considering our profit? Are we letting our pride get in the way, or are we being stagnant in what it is that we're doing? And it allows them to then nimbly make decisions going forward.
Founders listening, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 4 points. But Vandana, to you, thank you, Misti. Vandana, to you, anything further to add on this? I think you've invested in about 160 companies. I mean, you've got to have a few reasons why you've seen companies fail. So I'll turn it over to you.
So actually, failure is the stepping stone to greatness. But, while we are pitching to investors, there are some key factors, I think, which startups fail to keep it in the mind. Firstly is that I believe when they are trying to raise funds, startups need to have a solid pitch deck. A pitch deck is, very, very important document that a startup must have. They must be able to invest in that and get it made by a professional. Having a video pitch deck always helps as well, and having a website in order. These are the primary things they need to work on. Also getting their financial models and valuations done by a professional, having a complementary team, a marketing team, an operations team, a technology team always helps them. The investor is also looking for the drive in the founder. How humble is the founder? Is he ready to pivot or no? Is he throwing some valuation out of the blue? So all these things need to be taken into consideration. We must remember that the investor's money is the hard-earned money of the investor, which they are putting into the startup. I've had two cases when the founders, one founder has bought a car with the investor's money, the other one has treated cancer. So I think, it is not used for personal needs, the investment that is being made. It is used for business and purely business. Also, if one cannot manage their own money, it is better to have a CFO or an advisor on board who can manage your money after you get the investment, so you will not burn the money. And once the investments happen, it is always good to take advice of your investor as to why you're spending the money, where you're spending it, and why do you need to spend so much money in areas like excessive marketing expenditure, etc. So I think these are some of the key factors which a startup needs to keep in mind. Also, having a very good story. What is it that we are selling? We are selling our story, our company to the investor. It's just like dairy milk chocolate or a Hershey's bar. If they wrap it well, there's a tagline to it, it sells well. Similarly, we are selling our company to the investor, so we must have a very good storyline that catches the eyes of the investor. Many startups during pitching sessions, they don't make it interactive between the investor, the session between themselves and the investors. They just keep going on, and it creates boredom between the investor and themselves. So I think they need to make the interaction more interactive and create curiosity in the investor's mind. So I think these are some of the simple things why a startup would fail, and they could avoid these.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's bringing up these great points, and Kavash and I are cringing while it's all being said as startup founders, but also all of us having been there as well, and now being on the other side as investors. We feel both sides of those pains, and let's kind of flip the script. So now that we've gotten it out there, and again, pride, profit, people, stagnation. So founders continue to remember. Now that we've gotten it out there, let's flip the script. So now we sit on different sides of that table, right? We sit either as experienced entrepreneurs who, to Kavesh's point, our ideas may have failed, but we have not. And now we're looking at our next thing, as Vandana mentioned as well. And as investors, we're there to help support and encourage and work with our entrepreneurs that we do invest in to ensure that they do meet these three pillars, and also stagnation, and so that they do meet these areas and they can thrive or have the best environment to do so. So what are some of those pieces of advice, or what are those things that we can do as entrepreneurs as investors to help entrepreneurs we invest in? Misti, you were the first to unmute, so you get to go first.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle. One of the things that a lot of times people who either want to work with me or sometimes even approach me about working for my company, Wise, they ask, I really want to be a mentor and I really want to advise startups because I have so much knowledge and I want to tell these startups what they're doing wrong and how they're doing it wrong. And I let them know that being a mentor and being a really great advisor is helping the startup founders themselves pull that information out. I should not know their business better than they know their business. I can introduce them to people in my network. I can provide them with helpful resources. But in terms of knowing what should be done, I want them to give me the data and I ask them the questions that they may not be considering. So a lot of times when startup founders are looking for a mentor or an advisor, or if you're a really amazing investor and you are active in your investments and you're providing that advisement to startup founders, to not be the know-it-all, to ask your founders the important questions, to help them see around the corners that they may not be seeing around now, but let them dig through the data, talk to customers, refine, and especially test. Do not take my word for it. There have been startup founders who have started a business and then they have gone on to start a second one that failed. Their first one did great. They had an amazing exit. The second one failed. Why? Because it's not always what you've done in the past you can just replicate in the future. You're going to have to test. So being a really great advisor and a great mentor means helping your founders do the tests and not say, because I said this is exactly what you should do. Take it in concert with some of the other advice that you've been given, and then put it to work via a test.
That's a very, very, very good point as well. I think that too often, and Kavesh, you're coming up next, so you can validate or prove me wrong on this, but I think too often as entrepreneurs, right, what didn't work or what did work will work again, and that's not always the case. To Misti's point, you have to try again. A/B testing is a fun term, but it's also something you need to be paying attention to and always trying and always shifting as well. And Kavesh, to you, any thoughts on how we can help, and also advice to those getting started in your shoes as well?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur in residence and an entrepreneur mentor in residence as well. For London Business School, I'm also a Techstars mentor, a mentor with Founder Institute, and all these are avenues for me to speak to startup founders and understand what they're going through. Looking through the eyes of a 19-year-old as well as a 50-year-old who are going through that journey, and whenever there is a talk of some sort of an impending failure or doom, I sort of go back and help them heal, and come to terms with the concept of failure. Because as children, we were taught to associate failure for taking blame for something that was bad, or something which was not up to the mark, or us being incompetent, right? And as an investor, or as an advisor, or as a mentor, and also as an experienced founder, we realize that the startup world is completely different. It's chaotic, and things are meant to go wrong. It's mostly about connecting the dots, mostly about relationship management, which Misti mentioned, and also disciplined execution. So things are meant to go wrong. So if you are to reassess the concept of failure and help startup founders with those skills, with those people, with the network that they're missing, then it goes a long way. Not just because you're helping them with a certain problem, but you also help them think through the problem, so that the next time they come across a similar situation, they have the thinking caps on, and they have that experience to rely on. And it's about that reaction and that acceptance of failure, and acceptance of situations in the future, which will make or break startups. I keep saying this: entrepreneurship is a marathon of marathons. Okay, just when you think that you've finished a marathon, you're staring at another one, and then you have back-to-back marathons. There's hardly any breathing space, and when you admit that you don't know what's going to happen in the future, you move from this weak position of predicting to positioning yourself. So positioning helps you appreciate that there is a challenge, and you know exactly what needs to be done, and it allows you to keep playing. And good positioning allows you to, in fact, take advantage of the situation. So as an investor or as a mentor, is to help founders get into a good position when they get into difficult situations. And one piece of advice I normally tend to give founders is have some sort of a business plan with them all the time, which is a living and breathing document, because that's like your Google Maps. When you're lost, when you're driving and when you're lost, and you want to go back on track, or you want to take a detour, you can always see what's brought you to that point. And more importantly, where you're heading, because more often than not, as a founder myself, I was lost in the day-to-day grunt work to such an extent that I lost the sight of the future and where I was heading. So my job as a mentor and as an advisor, and also an investor, is to allow founders to have that breathing space and help them look at the future as well, in addition to the trench work. It is a difficult game, but yes, we do what we can.
Mhm. And that's another good point to end on as well. Is we do what we can, right? This is a process and journey, and as entrepreneurs, you have investors and advisors and mentors, as Tushar mentioned as well, that are there to help and support. But as Misti and Vandana both mentioned, we should know your business more than you do. That's we're there to support, not run the business with you, and also to be there as a support for you. Tushar and Vandana, anything else to add as to advice? Tushar, to you first. Vandana, we'll close with you, and then we'll come around for any closing thoughts. But Tushar, any pieces of advice to those entrepreneurs?
So my piece of advice is to be very aware of the decisions which many times they get taken because of vanity reasons. So you feel that you want to. The classic example can be WeWork. Leasing out top location buildings for 15 years and renting them out to people who are mostly from the gig economy and barely have a regular job. So so my advice is that a startup can get outcompeted. There is no shame in that. A startup can get outcompeted. There can be pricing or cost issues. It can be an unfriendly product. I still remember Nokia used to think that they have the best phone out there in the market with the Symbian operating system, and they just were sleeping on the wheel when Apple came along and Android came along, and they were left nowhere. So your eyes should be on the ground, and many times there are most genuine reasons why the startup fails, but a number of times it is actually making decisions, sitting on a glass house on top of 100-story building. And that's what and they should never, the startup guys should never lose sight of the fact that it is the business model behind the product which is very important, and that is what makes money for you. And that is what will keep the business sustainable. And if the business is sustainable, it can scale properly. I remember a very funny thing. There was a beautiful movie which had come out many years back about the Indian Army, and I was seeing one of the shows, and the guy asked the director of the movie that if you were to change one thing in the movie, what would that be? Because the movie flopped. So this guy said, the customers, the viewers. And so that is the funny part. Many times the customers are just not ready to accept what you have created. So keep on trying. Keshav here has done almost 20 companies, so he's a classic example of keep on trying.
Absolutely. And lastly, Vandana, close us out. Last piece of advice that you have for entrepreneurs out there that can help them in this process.
Sure. So I think it is very important to have the mind in center. And for that, I advise all startups to read the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Not only that, perseverance, patience leads us in the correct direction. I think it's very, very, very important to take an advice of a mentor. When you have a business plan, don't reach out to investors without checking on their thesis. I think one should not do cold calling. Connect with the right kind of investment bankers who have the right kind of relationships with these funds. So this is my small piece of advice.
Awesome. And thank you very much, Vandana. Let's start with you around where you can be found, as we've kind of covered closing thoughts today. So where can everyone find you to continue the conversation and connect further?
Me? You're asking
Yeah.
me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I could be reached out on LinkedIn or my website, www.convanto.com. And once again, thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you as well, Tushar.
I can be found on LinkedIn. There are not many people by my name who are there on LinkedIn. So, and I can be found on my website, consultancy.com. That's what is written besides my name. And happy to connect over email as well. That's my name, tusharconsul@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Kyle. I love your moderation, and it was really nice to be on the show today.
Thank you very much, Tushar. Kavesh, to you, and Misti, we're going to close out with you, but Kavesh.
Thanks, Kyle. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. My handle's CKADYA, Adya. You can also know more about me on my website, ck-adya.com. And with what we're doing at Adan Corporate at adancorporate.com.
Wonderful.
Pleasure being here on the show. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much, Misti.
Thanks so much, Kyle. And I agree with Tushar. It was wonderful moderation. So appreciate you having me as a guest today. I can also be found on LinkedIn. My name is spelled with all I's, Misti Cain. A lot of times people are like, oh, it's spelled with a Y at the end. But Misti Cain. And then on most social platforms, I'm at Hey Misti Cain. So HeyMistiCain, or my business name is Wise, WHYZZE. People sometimes ask why it's not spelled the traditional way. And I said, because I didn't want to pay $30,000 for the domain. So you get the startup spelling is how I like to position it.
There you go, entrepreneurs. That is a smart lesson learned from an entrepreneur to you all. So take advantage of that as well. And everyone, thank you so much for participating today and sharing your thoughts and insights and stories as well of what you've gone through on startups that may have not worked, but as entrepreneurs and investors, how you've continued to persevere and continue to push through to where you are today. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you click like, share, and subscribe to today's episode and channel to hear from all speakers of the VCTV family on a global scale as we bring some of the best and the brightest investors from around the world to share their thoughts and insights with each and every one of you on various technologies and topics like that today. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Please do reach out to myself and all of our speakers today on social media. When you do, please make sure you add context, where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. A big thank you to the Token team, to Maria and Hasmik for making today's episode possible. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back here with more VCTV. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.